The story begins with a girl named Heather. She's traveling with her two best friends, Connie and Amy, catching a train to Barcelona. The three of them had planned an exciting trip across all of Europe, and Heather had carefully mapped out every detail. On the train, a boy named Victor starts flirting with Amy. When he gets up to head toward the restroom, Amy follows right after him. And just then, another man enters the picture, Jack. He casually climbs onto the luggage rack above Heather and her friend's seats and lies down. It was a strange move. Connie soon drifted off to sleep, but Heather stayed awake, quietly reading her book. Jack noticed her and remarked, "I didn't know girls were into books like that." And that's how the two of them were introduced. When they shook hands, just their fingers brushed together. Heather then realized Jack was reading the very same book. They talked for a while, and soon after, Jack dozed off. By morning, the train finally arrived in Barcelona. Jack got off with Heather and her friends, and together they all walked out of the station. That's when Amy told them that Victor had invited her to a club that night. And just like that, their little group split in different directions. Heather and her friends went to visit the stunning Sagrada Familia. There, they spent time playing with soap bubbles near the cathedral. Later that night, the three of them went to the club as planned. Jack also showed up this time with his friend Rafe. Connie quickly developed a liking for Rafe, and the two slipped away to get drinks together. Amy went off with Victor. That left just Jack and Heather. Jack leaned closer and said, "Let's get out of here." When Heather asked why, he admitted, "I came here just to see you." Jack was the type of guy who never made plans. He was from New Zealand. Jack just lived in the moment, going wherever life carried him. He didn't have a steady job either, only temporary gigs to get by. Heather, on the other hand, was from Texas. After this trip, she was set to begin a brand new banking job in New York. When Jack heard about Heather's future plans, Jack smiled and said, "Opposites attract. We'd make a great match. We should just get married." Right then, Connie and Rafe came back outside. But Amy had already gone off with Victor to his house party. Connie told Heather she was heading to Rafe's hotel for the night. And once again, Jack and Heather were left alone. They started talking about their book when Jack spotted a tall tower nearby. He mentioned that his great-grandfather had once taken a cable car ride there back in the 1940s. On impulse, Jack and Heather broke in. Heather was nervous, worried they might get arrested, but Jack didn't seem to care. They climbed into the cable car, and Jack began telling her about his great-grandfather Russell. Russell had been a soldier in World War II, and while traveling through Europe, he wrote a detailed journal. Jack was now retracing the same journey, trying to visit each place his great-grandfather had described. As they sat there, watching the city lights, Jack and Heather shared their first kiss. They ended up falling asleep right inside the cable car. By morning, the ride suddenly started moving again. They had to jump out and run from the employees who discovered them. Soon after, Amy showed up, but she was in tears. Victor had stolen all of her belongings. She didn't even have her passport anymore, which meant she couldn't return home. The only option was to go to the embassy for an emergency passport. But Jack had something else in mind. Together, they set out to track Victor down. While searching, a young man recognized Amy from the night before, remembering her beautiful singing. She asked him if he'd seen Victor, and he offered to help. Eventually, they confronted Victor. Amy demanded her things back, but Victor swore he didn't have them. Heather pulled out her phone to call the police. Victor panicked and bolted, running half-dressed, with his underwear. When they searched his room, they finally found all of Amy's belongings. Along with them, Jack discovered a stash of cash. With that money, the group realized they could extend their trip. Everyone agreed. So they rented a sleek convertible car. And their adventure continued. Amy was still feeling a little down. But her friends cheered her up, reminding her that if it hadn't been for that incident with Victor, they wouldn't even be here together right now. The group made their way to the seashore, taking photos by the water. But Jack didn't join in. He hated taking pictures and never posed for them. Soon, they rented a boat and sailed out into the open sea. While swimming, Connie and Amy discovered that Heather had kissed Jack. Surprised, Amy decided that after this trip, she would walk the Camino pilgrimage route. She explained that even though what happened with Victor hadn't turned out too badly, it easily could have, and that's why she wanted to make this choice for herself. Her friends agreed with her decision. Meanwhile, Connie wanted to learn the art of winemaking. The next day, Rafe left with her to pursue that plan. The three friends were now scattered in different directions, leaving Heather and Jack alone together once again. Jack took Heather to another location from Russell's journal. And here, we learn something deeper about Heather's past. When she was just 10 years old, her mother had walked out of her life. While they were there, Jack noticed a girl nearby taking pictures. He shook his head and muttered how much he disliked that. According to him, people who take photos just for attention on social media miss the real experience of the moment. To Jack, such people seemed shallow and empty. Heather immediately challenged him. "So when my friends and I were taking photos earlier, you felt the same way about us?" she asked. She went on, "Think about it, Jack. You're following your great-grandfather's journal across Europe. Isn't that basically the same thing? You're holding on to memories. Taking pictures is just another way of doing it." Her words hit Jack hard. He realized he was wrong, and he apologized to Heather. As a gesture, he offered to personally take her to her next destination. Heather agreed, but only on one condition: she wanted to drive the car herself. During the drive, Jack opened up about his past. He revealed that he had once double majored in economics and statistics. He'd even had a great job lined up. But then, a sudden health scare changed everything. That experience taught him that nothing in life is guaranteed, and from then on, he chose to live only in the present moment. Finally, Jack dropped Heather off at the airport. He looked at her and said, "What if you just missed this flight? What's the worst that could happen?" But Heather shook her head. "I can't do that. In 2 weeks, my job starts." Still, Jack persuaded her, reminding her they still had some of Victor's money left. "With that," he said, "we can keep this adventure going." Heather's two friends were shocked when they heard her decision. She quickly video-called her father to tell him she wasn't coming home that day. Even he was stunned. Heather had never gone against her plans before. All he could say was, "Just take care of yourself." After that, Jack led Heather straight into someone's house. Surprisingly, the people inside already knew Jack. He often just walked in here without hesitation. An old man there even remembered Jack's great-grandfather. Jack didn't fully understand their language, but he still listened closely, even if most of it went over his head. Soon, the hosts turned to Heather and said they'd heard she could play the guitar. Heather hadn't touched one since high school. But when she picked it up, everyone joined in and started singing together. The next day, Jack and Heather set out for yet another destination. Jack shared his belief. "I think the universe, God, or whatever you want to call it, actually wants us to get what we truly desire. We just have to think about it over and over until it happens." Heather smiled softly and said, "I don't know." That night, the two spent it together. By morning, they laughed, jokingly thanking Victor because, after all, everything they were experiencing was only possible because of his stolen money. Jack admitted, "I don't want this to end." Their next stop was Pamplona, at the festival of San Fermin, the famous running of the bulls. Jack decided to join the race. But his choice quickly backfired. He ended up dislocating his shoulder. Heather looked at him seriously and said, "Maybe this is a sign. Maybe we shouldn't be using stolen money anymore." That's when the truth came out. Victor's money had already run out. Later, Heather video-called her friends. They could tell immediately that something serious was happening between her and Jack. Heather had been wandering across Europe with him, abandoning her careful plans, and simply following Russell's journal instead. She confessed, "I think I might be falling in love with him. I want him to come with me to New York." But she also admitted they had never actually talked about that. One day, during their travels, Jack received a call. The hospital had found something abnormal in his scans. But he kept this news from Heather. Meanwhile, Heather discovered some hidden pages tucked inside Russell's journal. Just then, thunder rumbled overhead. In those pages, Russell had written about a festival where people danced without stopping to welcome the arrival of spring. Jack handed the pages back to her. "These belong to you now," he said. And then he looked into her eyes and told her, "I love you." Heather whispered back, "Me too." Heather even told her father about Jack, about how she had met this boy, and how he was following his great-grandfather's journal across Europe. But soon after, Jack returned from the hospital. Heather asked him, "So what have you decided about the future?" Jack simply shook his head. He had no plans, every answer was just, "I don't know." He didn't believe in talking about the future at all. This troubled Heather deeply. What she wanted was for Jack to finally say, "I'll come with you to New York," or at least to make some plan for them after this trip. But Jack reminded her, "I told you, I don't make plans. I don't have the answers." And with that, Jack walked on in silence, leaving Heather behind with her doubts. Back in her room, Heather quietly booked her return ticket home. But just then, Jack walked in and surprised her. He told her, "I'm coming with you to New York. I've booked my ticket too." Before leaving, they went on one last adventure together. Like Russell, they planted an olive tree, promising that in another life, they would return to see it grown. And for the very first time, Jack pulled out his phone and took a picture of himself with Heather. Finally, they arrived at the airport. But right then, Jack received a call from an oncology clinic. His test results had come in. Still, Jack didn't tell Heather anything. He simply picked up his bag and said, "I'll be right back, just need to use the bathroom." But Jack never came back. Heather searched the restroom. He wasn't there. She called his phone, but no one answered. She even boarded the plane, hoping he might be inside. But Jack was gone. At last, a message came through, "I'm really sorry." And then, Jack blocked her number. Tears streamed down Heather's face as she flew back to New York alone. Days later, she told her friends everything. They were furious at Jack, insisting Heather deserved so much better. But even at work, Heather couldn't stop thinking about him. When she returned home, her father asked gently, "What happened?" Heather, her voice trembling, asked him, "When Mom left us, how did you cope?" Her father sighed. "I had two choices. I could hate her for leaving us, or love her for giving me you. I wasted too many years choosing hate. But you shouldn't do the same. You have a beautiful life ahead of you. Don't ruin it over one boy." That night, Heather confessed to her father, "I don't want this job. I don't even want to live in New York." Surprised, he asked, "Then why are you doing it?" She whispered, "Because I don't want to disappoint you." Her father shook his head. "Do what feels right for you." But Heather couldn't help talking about Jack again, about the freedom she felt when she was with him, and how much she missed that. Her father reassured her once more. And finally, Heather sent Jack a message. This time, it went through. She was unblocked. Around that time, she learned her friend Connie was marrying Rafe. Heather attended their wedding, but even there, her heart was full of thoughts of Jack. After the ceremony, she quietly asked Rafe if he knew anything. Rafe pulled her aside and handed her a letter. "Jack told me to give you this, if you ever asked about him." Heather opened it with trembling hands. Inside, Jack wrote, "I know what I did at the airport was unforgivable. Watching you walk onto that plane alone was the hardest thing I've ever done. But I had no choice. The truth is, my cancer came back. And I couldn't let you watch me die. Still, I miss you. Not a single day goes by that I don't think about those 2 weeks we spent together." At the bottom of the letter were the same mysterious lines Heather had once seen in Russell's secret journal pages. Suddenly, it all clicked. She knew exactly where Jack was. Without hesitation, Heather left everything behind and traveled to that very place, the festival where people danced without stopping to call forth the spring. And there, in the middle of the crowd, stood Jack. The two locked eyes. They reunited at last. And friends, this is where our story comes to an end. If you enjoyed this explanation, don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and of course subscribe to the channel for more.